The barista making my coffee dropped the cup and said, "You were my best friend before you disappeared in college." The ceramic mug hit the floor and shattered into a dozen pieces, coffee spreading across the tile in a dark puddle. I stepped back instinctively as the barista just stared at me, her hand still extended like she was holding the cup that was now destroyed at my feet. "Olivia?" Her voice cracked on the name. "Oh my God, Olivia Reeves! You're alive!" I looked at her face. This woman may be late 20s with red hair pulled into a messy bun and freckles across her nose, and felt absolutely nothing. No recognition, no memory, just the uncomfortable feeling of being mistaken for someone else. "I'm sorry," I said carefully. "My name is Claire Ashton. I think you have me confused with someone else." She was shaking her head, tears already forming in her eyes. No, you're Olivia. We were roommates at Northwestern. We were best friends. You disappeared junior year, just vanished from campus. The police searched for months." My chest tightened. "I've never been to Northwestern. I didn't go to college." The coffee shop was getting crowded behind me, people waiting for their orders, but the barista didn't seem to notice. She called over her shoulder to her coworker. "Marcus, take over for a minute." Then she came around the counter, ignoring the broken mug, and stood directly in front of me. "Olivia, it's me, Madison Keller. We lived together in Foster Hall sophomore and junior year. We had matching tattoos on our ankles. Small stars because we used to stargaze on the roof." She pointed at my left ankle where my jeans ended. "Check. I know you have one." I felt a cold wave wash over me because I did have a small star tattoo on my left ankle. I'd woken up with it 6 years ago when I came to in a hospital in Seattle with no memory of how I got there. The doctors said I'd been found unconscious near Pike Place Market. No ID, no belongings, just the clothes I was wearing and that tattoo. "A lot of people have star tattoos," I said, but my voice sounded uncertain even to me. Madison was pulling out her phone, scrolling frantically. Look at this." She shoved the screen in my face. It was a missing person poster with my photo on it, or at least someone who looked exactly like me. Same dark hair, same green eyes, same small scar above my left eyebrow that I'd always had but never knew where it came from. The poster read, "Missing, Olivia Reeves, 21, last seen October 12, 2018 near Northwestern University campus. If you have any information, please contact Chicago Police Department." I stared at the date. October 2018. That was 6 months before I woke up in Seattle with no memory of who I was or where I came from. "This is impossible," I whispered. Madison grabbed my arm. "Where have you been? Everyone thought you were dead. Your parents held a memorial service. The police closed the investigation. How are you here making coffee orders 6 years later in Portland?" I pulled my arm away, my breathing getting faster. "I don't know what you're talking about. My name is Claire Ashton. I've been living in Portland for 6 years. I work at a graphic design firm. I have an apartment, a life here. I'm not this Olivia person." But even as I said it, I felt something shifting inside me. That missing person poster looked exactly like me. The dates aligned with the gap in my memory. Madison was watching my face closely. "You really don't remember, do you? You don't remember Northwestern or Chicago or me or anything?" I shook my head. "I woke up in a Seattle hospital 6 years ago with no memory. The doctors said I had retrograde amnesia, probably from head trauma. I spent weeks trying to figure out who I was, but nothing came back. Eventually, I had to just start over, built a new identity, new life." Madison's expression shifted from shock to horror. "Someone hurt you. Someone made you disappear and you couldn't even remember who you were." She grabbed my hand. "Come on, we need to call the police. Your parents need to know you're alive. The detectives who worked your case need to know." I resisted, planting my feet. "No, I don't want to call anyone. I have a life here. I can't just suddenly become someone else because a stranger says I am." Madison's face hardened. "I'm not a stranger. I'm your best friend. Was your best friend. And you didn't just transfer schools or move away. You disappeared. Your roommate, me, came back from class and you were gone. Your wallet was on your desk. Your phone was there. Your keys. Everything except you. We filed a police report immediately. They found your car still in the campus parking lot. There was blood on the driver's seat." The words hit me like physical blows. Blood. Missing. Police investigation. "I need to sit down," I said faintly. Madison guided me to one of the small tables in the corner, away from the other customers. She sat across from me, still holding her phone with that missing person poster visible on the screen. "Tell me everything you remember," she said, "about waking up in Seattle, about the last 6 years. Tell me everything." So I did. I told her about waking up in Harborview Medical Center with no identification and no memory of anything before that moment. About the doctors running tests and finding evidence of old head trauma, but nothing recent enough to explain the amnesia. About spending weeks in the hospital while social workers tried to figure out who I was, running my fingerprints and DNA through every database with no matches. About eventually being discharged with a voucher for transitional housing and a caseworker who helped me apply for a new social security card and ID under the name I'd chosen for myself, Claire Ashton. About building a life from nothing over 6 years. Madison listened without interrupting, and when I finished, she was crying silently. "They did this to you. Whoever took you from that parking lot 6 years ago, they hurt you so badly you lost yourself completely. I wanted to argue, to insist this was all a mistake, but I couldn't. The evidence was sitting right there on her phone. My face, or Olivia's face, same thing apparently, on a missing person poster from exactly the right time period to explain my memory gap. If I really am this Olivia Reeves, I said slowly, why didn't my fingerprints show up in any database? Why didn't anyone connect me to a missing person case? Madison wiped her eyes. I don't know, but we need to find out. Can I call the detective who worked your case? His name is Robert Finch. He's still with Chicago PD. He gave me his card years ago and told me to call if I ever heard anything. I nodded, numb. Okay, call him. Madison pulled up a contact and dialed. The phone rang twice before a man's voice answered. Detective Finch. Madison took a breath. Detective, this is Madison Keller. I don't know if you remember me, but I was Olivia Reeves's roommate, the girl who disappeared from Northwestern in 2018. There was a pause. I remember. What can I do for you, Miss Keller? I found her. I found Olivia. She's alive. She's here in Portland. The silence on the other end lasted so long I thought the call had dropped. Then Detective Finch's voice came back, sharp and alert. You're certain it's her? Madison looked at me. I'm completely certain. Same face, same scar, same tattoo. It's her. But detective, she doesn't remember anything. She says she woke up with amnesia 6 years ago in Seattle and has been living under a different name ever since. More silence. Then the sound of typing. What name has she been using? I leaned toward the phone. Claire Ashton. I've been Claire Ashton for 6 years. Detective Finch's voice was careful. Miss Ashton, or Miss Reeves, I'm going to need you to come to Chicago. I need to verify your identity, take your statement, and figure out what the hell happened to you. Can you do that? I looked at Madison, at her tear-streaked face and desperate expression, and realized I didn't really have a choice. Yes, I'll come. The next 3 days were a blur of phone calls, arrangements, and growing dread. My boss at the design firm was confused but supportive when I asked for emergency leave. Family situation, I told him, which felt both true and false at the same time. Madison offered to fly to Chicago with me, and I accepted because the thought of facing this alone was terrifying. We booked flights for Friday afternoon. That gave me 2 days to sit with the reality that my entire life might be built on false foundation. Everything I thought I knew about myself, gone. Replaced by a history I couldn't remember. Thursday night, I couldn't sleep. I kept looking at that missing person poster Madison had sent me, studying the face that was supposedly mine, Olivia Reeves. The name felt foreign in my mouth. I tried saying it out loud. I'm Olivia Reeves. Nothing. No flash of recognition, no surge of memory, just words that meant nothing. Madison picked me up Friday morning for our flight. She looked as exhausted as I felt. I didn't sleep at all, she admitted. I kept thinking about all the times I wondered where you were, if you were okay, if you were even alive, and now you're here, but you're not really here. You're someone else. The flight to Chicago was tense. Madison tried to tell me stories about our supposed friendship, about late-night study sessions and weekend trips to the lake and inside jokes I didn't understand. I listened and tried to feel something, anything, but it was like hearing about a stranger's life. At O'Hare Airport, Detective Finch was waiting for us at baggage claim. He was maybe 50, graying hair, tired eyes, wearing a wrinkled suit. He looked at me, and I watched his expression shift from skepticism to shock. Christ, he said quietly. It really is you. He shook my hand formally. Miss Reeves, I'm Detective Robert Finch. I worked your missing person case from the beginning. Welcome back to Chicago, though I imagine this doesn't feel much like coming home. I nodded. It doesn't feel like anything. This city is a stranger to me. He led us to his car and drove us directly to the police station. On the way, he explained the process. We'll do fingerprint verification, DNA testing if needed, take a full statement about everything you remember from the last 6 years. Then we'll start investigating what happened. Where you were, who took you, why your prints weren't in the system when you surfaced in Seattle. At the station, a technician took my fingerprints while Detective Finch watched. The results came back in under an hour. The technician looked confused as she handed Detective Finch a printout. These prints match Olivia Reeves from the college student database. No question. But sir, there's something weird. According to our system, these prints were flagged as resolved in the missing person case back in 2019. Someone entered a note that the individual was located deceased. Detective Finch grabbed the printout and stared at it. What? Who made that entry? The technician pulled up the case file on her computer. Looks like it was entered by... She squinted at the screen. Detective Leonard Pierce, retired in 2020. The entry says remains were identified through dental records and the family was notified. Case closed as deceased. The room went silent. Detective Finch's face was turning red. But she's sitting right here, very much alive. Someone falsified case records and declared her dead. Why the hell would someone do that? I felt sick. Someone wanted me to stay disappeared. Someone wanted everyone to stop looking for me. Madison was gripping my arm so tightly it hurt. Who would do that? Who benefits from making people think Olivia is dead? Detective Finch was already on his phone calling someone. I need the full investigative file on Olivia Reeves, case number 2018-9432, on my desk in 10 minutes. And I need Internal Affairs to pull all activity logs for Detective Leonard Pierce from 2018 to 2020. He looked at me. Miss Reeves, I need you to tell me everything about the day you disappeared. Everything you did, everywhere you went, everyone you talked to. Even the smallest detail might matter. I shook my head helplessly. I don't remember any of it. I have no memory of college or that day or anything before waking up in Seattle. Madison spoke up. I can tell you what I know. That day, October 12th, Olivia had morning classes. We ate lunch together around noon. She seemed normal, maybe a little stressed about an upcoming exam. She said she was going to the library to study after her last class, which ended at 4. I had an evening seminar that went until 9. When I got back to our dorm room around 9:30, she wasn't there. Her stuff was there, but she wasn't. I called her phone and heard it ringing in her desk drawer. Detective Finch was taking notes. Did she mention meeting anyone? Any plans after the library? Madison thought for a moment. She did say something about her brother wanting to meet up. She seemed annoyed about it. Said something about him always needing money. My heart skipped. I have a brother? Madison looked at me surprised. You have 2 brothers, Ethan and Cole Reeves. Ethan is 2 years older, Cole is your twin. Neither of them went to college. They both stayed in Naperville where your family lives. She paused. Your relationship with them was complicated. They were both kind of troubled. Ethan had gambling problems. Cole had been in and out of rehab for drug issues. You felt like you were the only one in your family who had their life together. Detective Finch leaned forward. Did either of the brothers ever threaten her? Were there any concerns about her safety around them? Madison hesitated. Nothing explicit. But Olivia, you mentioned once that Ethan had asked you to steal money from your parents for him. You refused. He got really angry. That was maybe a month before you disappeared. Detective Finch's phone rang. He answered, listened, then hung up with a grim expression. Internal Affairs just informed me that Detective Leonard Pierce was investigated in 2020 for accepting bribes from a suspect in an unrelated case. He took early retirement as part of a plea deal to avoid prosecution. And get this, bank records from that investigation showed he received a $15,000 wire transfer in November 2018, 1 month after Olivia disappeared. The transfer came from an account belonging to Richard Reeves. My stomach dropped. Who is Richard Reeves? Detective Finch looked at me with something between pity and anger. Your father. Miss Reeves, I think your family paid a detective to declare you dead and stop the investigation. The room spun. Madison was saying something, but I couldn't hear her over the rushing in my ears. My own family. They'd paid someone to make sure I stayed disappeared. Why? I whispered. Why would they want me gone? Detective Finch pulled up something on his computer and turned the screen toward me. I'm looking at your family's financial history. In November 2018, right after you were declared dead, your parents received a very large life insurance payout, $500,000. They'd taken out a policy on you just 6 months before you disappeared. The pieces were clicking together in the worst possible way. Madison stood up abruptly. Are you saying her family had her killed for insurance money? Detective Finch held up a hand. I'm saying it's a hell of a coincidence. Life insurance policy, convenient disappearance, bribe detective, falsified death certificate. But we need proof. We need to figure out what actually happened to Miss Reeves and who was involved. He looked at me. I need you to think hard. When you woke up in Seattle, were there any injuries? Any evidence of what happened to you? I tried to remember those first confused days in the hospital. The doctor said I had old injuries, broken ribs that had healed improperly, scars on my back that looked like burn marks, evidence of long-term malnutrition. They thought I'd been homeless for a while before I collapsed. Detective Finch's expression darkened. That doesn't sound like a quick murder attempt. That sounds like you were held somewhere, possibly for months. Madison was crying again. Oh God, what did they do to you? I felt numb, disconnected from my own body. I need to talk to my parents, to Richard and whoever my mother is. I need to hear them explain this. Detective Finch shook his head. Not yet. If they're involved in your disappearance, confronting them could destroy evidence or give them time to cover their tracks. We need to investigate first. Figure out exactly what happened before we make any moves. Over the next week, Detective Finch built a case that made me physically ill. He interviewed Detective Leonard Pierce, who eventually admitted under pressure that Richard Reeves had paid him to falsify records and declare me dead without a body. Pierce claimed he didn't know what had actually happened to me, just that Richard wanted the case closed and was willing to pay for it. Detective Finch tracked my movements from that October day. Security footage from campus showed me leaving the library at 6:15 p.m. and getting into a car in the parking lot. The car belonged to my brother Ethan. They found Ethan's phone records showing he'd texted me that afternoon asking to meet. Need to talk about Dad. It's important. Meet me at your car at 6. Detective Finch brought me to an interrogation room where Ethan Reeves sat across from me. I studied his face, trying to find any recognition, any sense of familial connection. There was nothing. He looked at me and his expression cycled through shock, fear, and finally resignation. "You're supposed to be dead," he said flatly. Detective Finch slammed a file folder on the table. "She's very much alive. Want to explain why you thought she was dead, Ethan?" He looked down at his hands. "I didn't think. I knew. I helped." The confession spilled out over the next hour. Ethan admitted that our father Richard had orchestrated the entire thing. Ethan had lured me to the parking lot under false pretenses. Cole, my twin brother, had been waiting in the back seat. They'd injected me with something that knocked me unconscious. They'd driven me to a property our father owned in rural Wisconsin, an old farmhouse nobody knew about. "Why?" I demanded, my voice breaking. "Why would you do that to your own sister?" Ethan wouldn't meet my eyes. "Dad said you were going to ruin everything. You'd found out about his business dealings. He was laundering money through fake construction contracts. You told him you were going to report him to the authorities. He couldn't let that happen." He finally looked up at me. "We kept you in the farmhouse basement for 3 months. We were supposed to keep you there until Dad figured out what to do long term. But you got sick. Really sick." Cole panicked. "He was high one night and left the basement door unlocked. You escaped." The memories of those missing months were locked behind walls my brain had built to protect me, but hearing Ethan describe it made my stomach turn. "What happened after I escaped?" Ethan shook his head. "We looked for you, but you disappeared. Dad thought you died of exposure in the woods. He paid Pierce to close the case and got the insurance payout. We all thought you were dead until now." Detective Finch leaned forward. "Where is Cole now? And your father?" Ethan's voice was barely a whisper. "Cole died 2 years ago. Overdose. Dad is at home in Naperville." They arrested Richard Reeves that afternoon. I watched through the one-way glass as Detective Finch interrogated him. My father, a man I didn't remember but who'd orchestrated my imprisonment and attempted murder, sat calmly in the interrogation room denying everything. "My daughter died 6 years ago. This woman is clearly disturbed, looking for attention or money." Detective Finch showed him the evidence. Ethan's confession, the bribe detective's testimony, the financial records, the security footage. Richard's expression never changed. Even when faced with overwhelming proof, he maintained his innocence. "Ethan is lying to save himself. There's no proof I did anything wrong." But there was proof. Enough that the district attorney filed charges: conspiracy to commit kidnapping, attempted murder, insurance fraud, and tampering with a police investigation. Richard Reeves was held without bail. The trial took 8 months. I had to testify about waking up in Seattle with no memory, about the injuries the doctors had documented, about the life I'd built not knowing who I really was. Madison testified about our friendship and my disappearance. Ethan testified about the kidnapping and my imprisonment. The jury took 6 hours to convict Richard Reeves on all counts. I sat in the courtroom when the judge sentenced him to 35 years in prison. He looked at me as they led him away in handcuffs, his expression still blank and unreadable. I felt nothing. This man was supposed to be my father, but he was just a stranger who destroyed my life for money. Ethan took a plea deal and got 15 years. His testimony against Richard had been crucial, but he'd still participated in kidnapping and imprisoning me. Madison stayed with me through the entire trial. She'd taken a leave of absence from her job in Portland to help me navigate this nightmare. One evening, after a particularly brutal day of testimony, we sat in my hotel room and she pulled out her phone. "I want to show you something. Maybe it'll help." She played a video of 2 young women, clearly college students, sitting on a dorm room floor eating pizza. One of them was definitely me or Olivia, laughing at something the other girl, Madison, was saying. "We were celebrating finishing our sophomore year," Madison explained. "You were so happy that night. You talked about all your plans for junior year. You wanted to study abroad in Italy. You were going to apply for internships at design firms in Chicago." She paused the video on my face, frozen in laughter. "I want you to know who you were before they took that from you." I stared at the screen, at this version of myself I couldn't remember. "I don't know if I'll ever get those memories back. Dr. Reeves, the neurologist I've been seeing, says the trauma combined with whatever drugs they gave me might have caused permanent damage." Madison squeezed my hand. "Then we'll make new memories. You're still you, Olivia, whether you remember your old life or not. You survived something horrific. You built a whole new life from nothing. That takes incredible strength." Over the following year, I slowly tried to reclaim pieces of Olivia Reeves's life while holding on to Claire Ashton's. I legally changed my name back to Olivia, but I kept Claire as a middle name, a reminder that both versions of me were real. I moved back to Chicago and enrolled in Northwestern to finish my degree. The university gave me credit for the classes I'd completed before and allowed me to complete my final year. Madison and I became roommates again, though our relationship was different now. Not exactly friendship, not exactly sisterhood, something in between that didn't have a name. I reconnected with other people from my past, though most of those relationships felt strained and artificial. They remembered me and I didn't remember them. We were strangers pretending to be old friends. My mother, who'd divorced Richard after his arrest, tried to rebuild a relationship with me. She claimed she hadn't known about his plans, that she'd genuinely believed I was dead. I didn't know if I believed her, but I tried to forgive. Some wounds were too deep for complete healing, but I could learn to live with the scars. I graduated from Northwestern 2 years after the trial ended. Madison was in the audience cheering when I walked across the stage to receive my diploma. After the ceremony, we went back to that same coffee shop where she'd first recognized me. Different baristas now, no one who knew my story. We ordered lattes and sat by the window. Do you ever think about who you'd be if none of this had happened? Madison asked. I considered the question. Sometimes. But then I realized I can't separate who I am now from what happened. The trauma shaped me, but so did surviving it. So did building a life from nothing. I'm not the Olivia you knew in college anymore, but I'm not just Claire either. I'm something new. But if you enjoyed this, you'll definitely want to see the next ones too. So subscribe now and let me know your take in the comments.